Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to talk about my gecko Melisandre, who actually laid some strange eggs this year. It's not her first time laying weird looking eggs. In fact, 2 years ago, she also laid a clutch of very strange looking eggs and she was egg bound from them. But in between those years, she had normal eggs. So I thought, let's talk about why her eggs look like this, and also let's put it out there in case anyone else has experienced it and they can let me know down below. So before we get started, I ask that you please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and away we go. A little bit of backstory about my gecko Melisandre and why she might be laying these weird eggs. So Melisandre was rehomed to me in 2017 as a pet only due to the fact that she has Enigma syndrome. If you're unfamiliar with what pet only or Enigma syndrome terms are, pet only means it's a gecko that cannot be bred or really shouldn't be bred. I mean, like physically people do breed pet only geckos when they really aren't supposed to be bred, but it's more of like the ethical choice. It makes sure that the gecko who is actually breeding the eggs doesn't have any sort of harm from doing so. It also makes sure that the eggs that are being produced are like of the best quality. But yes, like I said, people will still breed Enigmas or like other types of pet only geckos. However, Melisandre was very fortunately rehomed to me where she has never been bred. All the eggs that she's laid with me have been infertile and not of my choosing. Believe me, if I could choose that she would never lay eggs, that's the choice I'd make for her, but it's up to her, not me. I have plenty of girl geckos who've never laid an egg before. It just so happens that Melisandre is not one of them. So the other term that I used to describe Mel was Enigma syndrome, and if you're unfamiliar with my channel, then you probably don't know what Enigma syndrome is, but it basically is a neurological disorder associated with the Enigma morph, meaning that only geckos who are Enigma in their genetics, in their appearance, can have the Enigma morph. So this is something that I've had to say like pretty extensively on my channel, but if you don't know that your gecko is an Enigma or not, don't say it has Enigma syndrome. Regardless, I have a whole video about Enigma syndrome I will include up here so you can watch. It's actually a more recent updated video, and so Melisandre is in it. But personally, I believe the reason that she lays such weird eggs is because her genetics are a bit wonky. And so she's got Enigma, she's got some other things, and I think for her situation, egg laying is just not really a good thing. So let's talk about the eggs that she laid. So back in 2000 and what year is it? 2021? So 2019, it's been a wild couple of years, okay? So back in 2019, during ovulation season, which for leopard geckos occurs between like February and June or July. Some geckos start really early, like in February, some start really late, like in June or July, but that is the typical breeding season for leopard geckos. And if you live in like a different type of climate, it might be different, but for where I live in the United States, that is the breeding season. So that is when you're going to see your gecko's behavior change, especially if they're female, but there's a whole video up here about that if you're interested. This is just going to be about Melisandre. So she ended up laying her eggs after being egg bound. So I had to take her to the vet. We had to get x-rays done. We had to do exams, like everything that, you know, can possibly give us more idea of why these eggs were not coming out of her body. And there was no reason structurally or in terms of not enough calcium or not enough like muscle or not being fed enough. It literally just came down to she's wonky because she has Enigma syndrome, and it might just be causing her enough stress that she's not like laying them. Now, egg binding can happen to any morph of gecko. Just want to be very clear about that. I've never actually experienced it outside of Melisandre, so that was very interesting. But yeah, eventually she laid the eggs. Fortunately, we didn't need to do any medical intervention. 2 weeks after her first vet appointment, she laid one egg, which is very strange. Typically, the clutch is laid at the same time. So then I called the vet and I was like, hey girl, she hasn't laid the other egg yet, just one. And the vet was like, hey girl, give her a couple weeks. If she hasn't laid it, come back. And so because she was still eating and she wasn't in any like apparent distress other than having Enigma syndrome, which is normal for her, we decided to give her the time, and she had a vet appointment and she laid her egg the day before her appointment. So I was like, thank you for saving me money, Melisandre. You're amazing. Other than saving me money, like I was way more happy that I didn't have to have a surgery on her, because honestly, because of her Enigma syndrome and how worse it gets with stress, we both were like, maybe it's for the best that we don't do a surgery and we just euthanize, because like it's hard enough to have surgery on a little like healthy abled gecko body, to have it on a gecko that has a neurological disorder as well and flails around a lot and like has to be tongue fed, and it's just, it would be a whole mess. It'd be like infinitely harder for her to recover than it would be for an abled gecko. So we had to talk about all of our options, right? So I was really happy that she decided to lay the eggs on her own. But the eggs she laid, very strange. She wouldn't lay them in her lay box, which she had 3 lay boxes. She had one with sphagnum moss, she had one with EcoWorth, and then she had another that had EcoWorth, but it was like a different shape. So I was like, maybe she'll decide like which one of these is better. She never laid in any of them. She just decided to lay right in the middle of her floor. And so I was like, very interesting. So the eggs that she laid were very strange looking. They were hard. I think they had begun to calcify. They were like half solid, half not. They were strangely colored. Very weird eggs. But she didn't lay any more eggs after that. It was just one clutch and done. So I was very happy. Then 2020? Yeah, 2020. Geez, like I said, it's been a couple years. So in 2020, she laid a completely normal clutch of eggs, did not have any egg binding, and she laid them in her lay box, and it was just one clutch and done. So I figured this year I'm probably gonna have another one clutch and done, and sure enough, she did. But she also was holding on to them, not as long as she did the first time around where she was egg bound, but she did hang on to them a bit, and she did lay one before the other, but there wasn't 2 weeks in between them. It was just like a few days. So she laid one egg, and then she waited some days and then laid the other one, and they were both very weird looking too, and she didn't lay them in her lay box. So I don't know. She also would go off food, and so I'd have to like make some Repashy grub pie, a little bit more liquidy than usual, put it in a syringe and feed her that way. It's very stressful. Not something that I enjoy doing at all. Like I just sit there and kind of cry while I'm doing it because I feel so bad. But it's like the only way to help her out. And so this year I was like, all right, I thought that egg binding would be like a one and done, and unfortunately it's not. And so part of the reason I'm talking about this is like just for the viewers of my channel to know that like if this happens again next year, I'm gonna probably euthanize Melisandre, just on the fact that like she becomes so much extra stressed. Like she becomes so stressed that she won't eat. She constantly is like circling and stargazing and flopping over, and it's just really not something that I think is like humane to allow her to continue doing. So if she decides next year to lay again, which girl, please don't. Melisandre, the pet room's that way, so I'm talking to her that way. Melisandre, please don't. But like if she decides to again next year, I will euthanize her, and this video will stand to be a little bit of reason behind that. But I also wanted to share like the really weird eggs that she had. And again, this year was 2 strange eggs laid separately, one clutch and done, and she's like completely back to normal. She's eating, putting on weight. Her Enigma syndrome obviously is still there, and it's gotten worse like ever since the first time that she was egg bound. So like I'd say she had like more moderate Enigma syndrome before she laid the first clutch of eggs in 2019, and her syndrome became worse after that, which is actually super common for geckos who have Enigma syndrome or a neurological issue in general. When their health dips or when they have like an extreme stress event like being shipped or ovulating or laying eggs or any sort of like injury, it makes their syndrome worse. Their symptoms are more present. So for Melisandre, that's the case, and so another reason for euthanasia. So it's just something that I think people may not consider when it comes to keeping special needs reptiles, is that's always something that has to be on the table, has to be considered. And so I was heavily thinking about it this year when she was going through that, but she recovered so quickly from laying those 2 eggs compared to 2 years ago that I was like, okay, let's just like, you know, wait it out. And she's pretty much back to normal compared to where she was before she laid those 2 eggs. But yeah, really weird looking eggs. I have 33 geckos. A lot of them are females. In fact, the majority are female, and none of them have laid eggs like that before. The only other issues I've ever had with my geckos laying eggs has been when I rescued Aria back in 2017, and she started developing eggs, and she had been fed a really bad diet of waxworms, and she had waxworm addiction. She wasn't supplemented properly. She had a lack of calcium, and so she made eggs every 14 days, which is absurd. But she laid eggs every 14 days, stopped using her back legs because she was like just tired, didn't have the energy. But once we got her on calcium, like she had to be like given calcium by the mouth, not just like supplemented on food, like you had to give her liquid calcium. But once she had that, she was right as rain in a few weeks. But that's literally the only issue I've ever had with geckos laying eggs, and Aria hasn't laid eggs since then. So in general, my geckos don't normally lay eggs. I've had like maybe 5 geckos, 6 geckos maybe, lay eggs, and most of them are just like a one and done. Like they laid one time, one season, and haven't since. Except for Egret, who decides to lay every year. She lays 10 eggs every year. Anyways, now I'm just going off topic, but I wanted to share this to talk about Melisandre's weird egg. Let me know about your weird leopard gecko eggs down below, or if you've ever had any at all. Also, I don't want this video to scare anyone from keeping female leopard geckos. Like I said, most of mine never even lay eggs. Most of mine never have had an issue when they lay eggs. It's pretty much just Melisandre and then Aria, which was due to the neglect from her previous home. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found this informational and insightful. If you did, let me know by leaving a like and a comment. Also, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. Check the links below for everything like Patreon and merch and social media and all that kind of stuff. And I'm rambling. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.